Coming up on a newscast, as nation's total COVID-19 infections top 10 million and severe cases and deaths surge in recent weeks, the local drug safety agency decides to give emergency approval for the use of Merck's oral antiviral treatment pill. The presidential inauguration ceremony in May will be held in the front garden of the National Assembly compound. It's confirmed the Unification Ministry will not be abolished under the Yoon administration. The government announces that for those who own just one home, property taxes will be assessed using last year's calculated home values to prevent a huge tax bill amid an overheated market. Hello and welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che here to bring the latest. Let's begin with our top story. The nation's COVID-19 tally between Wednesday midnight and 9 p.m. exceeded 380,000. With more than 10 million cases since the pandemic began, it means 1 in 5 people were at some point infected. The Prime Minister provides reassurance the turning point will come in 2 weeks. Jae-in starts us off.
South Korea on Wednesday reported 490,881 new COVID-19 infections. This is a jump of more than 90,000 from the same time last week and up by more than 130,000 from Tuesday. Wednesday's figure has brought the number of total COVID-19 infections to over 10 million at 10,427,247. The total tally suggests that 1 out of 5 South Koreans has contracted the virus at some point. Meanwhile, health authorities have clarified what they class as reinfections. In a briefing on Tuesday, health authorities said in order to be considered reinfected, 90 days must have passed. Citing domestic and overseas data, authorities said positive tests within the first 45 days may be a result of viral residue being picked up through testing and that reinfection risks are very low during this time period. It's only those who report symptoms or those who have traveled abroad and come back with a positive PCR test result after 45 days who can be considered reinfected. As to when South Korea will see a drop in the number of infections, Prime Minister Kim Boo-kyum said this will happen in the next few weeks.
The next 2 weeks will be the turning point in overcoming the pandemic. If we endure this a bit more and abide by all measures, we will see caseloads come down quicker and reduce the number of deaths.
The Prime Minister added that authorities will make sure to have enough ICU beds and specialized hospitals for COVID-19 patients in case there's a surge in the number of critically ill patients and deaths after passing the Omicron peak. Authorities are also set to solve the shortage in cold medicine that pharmacies nationwide have been seeing. This comes as there has been a surge in the number of people infected with COVID-19 or showing related symptoms. Jae-in, Arirang News.
Staying here in the nation, emergency use authorization granted for Lagevrio, making it the second oral pill to be approved in the country. The decision comes as authorities have determined that an alternative to Paxlovid is needed for high-risk patients. Jae-in explains further.
South Korea's Ministry of Food and Drug Safety on Wednesday approved the emergency use of the oral COVID-19 treatment Lagevrio, developed by U.S. drug maker MSD. Lagevrio, also known as molnupiravir, is now the second oral COVID-19 pill to be approved for use in the country, following the approval of Pfizer's Paxlovid in December last year. The drug has also been granted authorization in 15 countries, including the U.S., the UK, and Japan. Those eligible for it are COVID-19 adult patients who are at relatively higher risk of developing severe symptoms. But the pill can only be given to those who cannot be prescribed with Paxlovid due to underlying illnesses related to the kidney or liver, and also to those unable to take Paxlovid with their other medications. People should also know that pregnant women and those under 18 are not included in the list. The drug ministry is advising women who are taking Lagevrio to avoid trying to get pregnant for 4 days after the last dose, and men 3 months. 4 pills should be taken at once, twice a day, with around 12 hours in between each intake. Like Paxlovid, the medicine should be taken for 5 days. Experts strongly advise patients to take it as soon as they experience symptoms. Clinical trial data show that the drug can reduce the hospitalization and death rate by around 30%. Some side effects of Lagevrio include dizziness, diarrhea, and nausea, but experts say they appear to be very mild. Although it's a very small chance, authorities said that patients who have suffered serious side effects can be compensated if the causality between taking the pills and side effects is recognized. Meanwhile, health authorities earlier revealed that 20,000 courses of Lagevrio will be introduced first, and they will be distributed to designated hospitals as soon as Saturday. Choi Min-dong, Arirang News.
The Omicron variant has been spreading rapidly around the world the past few months. Although it is said to produce milder symptoms, a growing number of people are suffering from various after effects. For details, let's turn to our Song Yu-jin.
South Korea's COVID-19 tally has surpassed the 10 million mark. The Omicron variant has played a key role in the surge after it began to spread rapidly across the country late last year. Despite its high transmissibility, Omicron has been known to trigger milder symptoms, but some people are still struggling even after testing out of self-isolation.
I've been released from quarantine, but I still cough a lot and have a runny nose. Although the symptoms are milder than before, I feel that my health is not the same before getting Omicron.
My voice has changed and I'm constantly covered in a cold sweat. So I need to turn on the fan when I'm working in the day, and when I wake up in the morning, my entire body is covered in sweat.
The after effects are wide-ranging. The most common symptoms are in line with the common cold, which are a dry cough, fatigue, and dizziness. However, in some cases, neurological symptoms such as brain fog, insomnia, anxiety, and forgetfulness have also been reported. Some have also complained of a loss in smell and taste. As the exact cause behind these long-lasting symptoms has yet to be discovered, experts say the best advice is to do all one can to avoid getting the virus.
It's best to not go through COVID-19 if you can avoid it, because as we are currently seeing, some people are more vulnerable to having it more severely. And for those people who have it more severely, but also with underlying diseases, they're also more likely to have, secondary and tertiary possible side effects from it, such as the lung fibrosis. So I guess my advice is, number one, get vaccinated so that you have much lesser chance of getting the disease.
However, after getting infected and if there are after effects, people should not hesitate to receive help.
If the symptoms are bothersome enough, it is best to visit a doctor, get tested, and receive appropriate medical treatment, rather than keeping them to yourself. High-risk groups, such as those with underlying health conditions, should especially watch out.
Song Yu-jin, Arirang News.
The top office has nominated Rhee Chang-yong as the next Bank of Korea governor. The decision was reportedly made after consultations with officials working with President-elect, but the team disputes this. Yoon Jung-min has the full story.
There will soon be a new governor at the Bank of Korea. President Moon Jae-in has nominated the current director in charge of Asia-Pacific affairs at the International Monetary Fund, Rhee Chang-yong, to head the country's central bank. Should he pass the confirmation hearing at the National Assembly, Rhee will serve at least one 4-year term. The Blue House emphasized on Wednesday Rhee's expertise in economy and finance, as he also served as a chief economist at the Asian Development Bank.
It is expected that the nominee will contribute to stabilizing prices and financial markets through effective and stable monetary policy, dealing with economic and financial situations at home and abroad.
The presidential office said the appointment was discussed with President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol's side, but Yoon's team refuted, saying there was no coordination. Officials at the Blue House said the appointment was intended to avoid the central bank's governor post being vacant and that the position is politically neutral and independent. The current BOK governor Lee Ju-yeol is set to retire at the end of this month. The Blue House says exercising the right for appointment rests with the president until his term ends, while the president-elect's team has been critical of the outgoing government making appointments for certain posts recently. These include making appointments for key posts at the Board of Audit and Inspection and the National Election Commission. Regarding a meeting with Yoon, which hasn't yet been realized since the election, President Moon reportedly stressed to his officials the need to meet the president-elect anytime without conditions. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
The Transition Committee announced some additional task forces. This includes a team working to better utilize government data and another to reform the current government structure. The committee also struck down speculation that the new administration plans to close down the Unification Ministry. Kim Do-yeon tells us more.
3 task forces were created on Wednesday for President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol's Transition Committee. One on digital platform government, another on government structure reforms, and one on the real estate market. Of these, the task force on digital platform government is a team of 10, including civilian ICT experts who will work on plans for a cross-ministry platform that will provide convenient ways to use government data for the benefit of the people.
Because this is a task under President-elect Yoon's philosophy on public administration, it's regarded as a core project for the committee. It began with the idea that the data the government has in each department all belongs to the public and is fundamentally owned by the people.
It'll be a long process, but the committee's ultimate goal is to integrate the public data the government has by making it open and linking it. Once things start coming into place, the spokesperson says, for example, pharmacies will be able to dispense medicine with no need for a paper prescription. It'll all be in the system. As for the task force on government structure reform, one key issue was whether the government will keep the Unification Ministry.
There will be no abolishing of the Unification Ministry. The committee was not looking into closing it, but rather considering specific measures to restore the ministry's unique role.
The ministry's unique role is in inter-Korean exchanges as well as its humanitarian efforts. Such question arose because in the past, former conservative President Lee Myung-bak had sought to abolish the ministry, and the current chair of the party, Lee Jun-seok, also questioned the role of the ministry last year. Striking down such speculation, the spokesperson added that the new administration will seek to give the Unification Ministry more autonomy. The ministry briefed on Yoon's Transition Committee on Wednesday afternoon. And while speculation had been going around, it's considered most likely that the briefing covered from vaccine support for North Korea to the regime's recent missile launches. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
President-elect Yoon held a phone with the President of Vietnam, Nguyen Phuc, and agreed to deepen bilateral ties on multiple fronts. The Vietnamese leader congratulated the President-elect and said it was a good decision this year to upgrade their relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Yoon thanked the President of Vietnam's support last year during the diesel exhaust fluid shortage crisis that threatened the logistics industry. He vowed to work to bring down the barriers between their countries caused by COVID-19. President-elect Yoon's inauguration preparatory committee has officially finalized its members. The committee also announced the event will take place at the National Assembly in tune with the tradition upheld by past leaders. Lee Kyung-eun has the latest.
On May 10th, President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol will officially signal the start of his administration. And the head of Inauguration Preparatory Committee, Park Ju-sun, on Wednesday said that the ceremony will once again be about national unity. That's the key value Yoon has been promoting since the start of his campaign and the vision for his new government.
We will do our best to reflect the core values of the President-elect, which are centered on the restoration of fairness, common sense, and integration.
Several places have been reviewed for this critical event, including Seoul Plaza, where Yoon held his finale campaign rally, and Yongsan Park, where Yoon is planning to relocate the presidential office from the Blue House. The venue has now been finalized. It would take place right here in front of the National Assembly. This place can take up to 50,000 people. In case of bad weather, the main building will be used instead. All past inaugurations since 1987 had taken place at the National Assembly after the country adopted direct vote. The historical value was widely taken into consideration. Planning and directing the ceremony will be Lee Do-hoon. He is behind the iconic tech-savvy drone show at the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, impressing viewers worldwide. Perhaps the most important will be the speech itself, and a team of 16, mainly experts from various fields, will take part.
The members are carefully appointed with those who share President-elect Yoon's political philosophies and vision, and the understanding of the digital platform government.
Under the theme of unity, a group of 500 citizens from different backgrounds will be invited. The committee is said to be considering inviting former presidents as well for that purpose. Yoon, Arirang News.
Turning to the latest from Ukraine, Mariupol has been turned to ashes of a dead land, according to its council. There are now reports that Russian forces are experiencing a shortage of supplies, which suggests Moscow could invite Belarus to join the war. Kim Da-mi brings the updates.
Nothing but plumes of smoke and orange flames now fill the air in Ukraine's besieged port city of Mariupol after weeks of Russian bombardment. The latest satellite images show extensive damage to factory buildings and residential areas. In fact, the Russian bombed the theater, where hundreds of people are still believed to be trapped underground, no longer even resembles a building. The city council said the intense Russian airstrikes have turned the port city into the, quote, ashes of a dead land.
At the present moment, there are around 100,000 people living in the city in inhumane conditions, under complete siege, without food, water, and medicine, under constant shelling and bombardment.
President Zelensky also said Tuesday that talks with Moscow to bring an end to the war are continuing daily and insisted they were moving forward step by step. But the humanitarian situation in Kherson City, where Russian forces invaded first, is also dire, with around 300,000 people stranded and running low on food and medical supplies. But AP reported that the Ukrainian military has recaptured the Makariv region from Russian forces, while the Russian army is reportedly struggling with a shortage of food, ammunition, and fuel. But that could also mean Russia could have Belarus join the war against Ukraine. CNN reported that the country is already taking steps to do so. While there are concerns that Russia could deploy a small targeted nuclear bomb, U.S. President Joe Biden is expected to announce more sanctions on Russia on his visit to Europe on Thursday. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
The South Korean government announced this year's calculation for home values, which would determine the amount people pay in property taxes. The plan is to ease burden on people who own just one home by using last year's assessed values. Jung provides a glimpse of what to expect.
This year's home values in South Korea, based on the government's price calculations, have recorded the third biggest increase in the country's history. The fair market appraisal value of homes in 2022 increased by 17.22% nationwide compared to last year. Seoul saw around a 14% rise, Gyeonggi-do province around 23%, and Busan roughly 18%. Nationwide, the rise is smaller than last year's by about 2 percentage points, but if it were to be fully reflected in property taxes, this year's tax bill for some homeowners would be much bigger. So to ease the burden on those who own just one home that they live in, the government announced that it's going to use last year's assessed values when calculating property tax for this year. And for those whose homes have fallen in value this year, then taxes will be based on this year's lower amount.
Despite the rise in home values this year, the property holding tax burden for people who own just one home will not increase from that of last year's. Also, to help those owner-occupiers who are 60 and older, who don't have sufficient ability to pay property taxes, a new measure will be implemented to defer such holding taxes until they hand over the property to others.
There's also a measure for people who own multiple homes and have been reluctant to sell because of taxes. If they sell all their extra units by June this year, last year's home values will be applied to them as well. And because rising home values affect state health insurance premiums, the government announced that health premiums for single homeowners will be frozen this year, or they could be lowered. But an expert says that most real estate policies are bound to be changed under the incoming Yoon administration.
After May 10th, President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol with his transition committee will come up with many short and long-term real estate policies, including tax reforms. When he becomes the president, the current administration's real estate policies will likely be reformed completely.
Ji-young, Arirang News.
The government will allow large local automakers to sell used cars. The move is looked to help enhance the quality of pre-owned vehicles. However, some voice concerns over a potential monopoly in the industry. Min Suk-hyun provides a deeper analysis.
South Korea's large automakers can now tap into the country's used car business. Initially, the sector was considered an area that needed to be protected and reserved for small and medium-sized enterprises only. And so since 2013, large companies have been barred from entering the sector. But that ban has now been overturned. The Korea Automobile Manufacturers Association strongly welcomed the decision, saying that this will serve as an opportunity to help the market grow.
Local automakers were unable to enter the used car industry. This abnormality has finally been fixed. In other countries, car makers are allowed to sell used vehicles. It's only South Korea that restricted automakers from selling used cars. So this reverse discrimination in some way has now been resolved.
The latest decision is expected to benefit consumers as the entry of automakers can improve market transparency and give consumers more choice.
A mismatch in information made it difficult for consumers to determine the actual quality and price of used cars. Also, consumers have complained over shady practices, such as false sales and bait advertising. And so the opening of the market can promote competition, enhance market transparency, and provide consumers with a variety of high-quality cars.
But there are also parties that find the decision troubling, citing the risk of market monopoly and polarization.
If large auto companies sell new cars and eventually also get to buy used vehicles, they will dominate the market and create a monopoly. Also, since Hyundai and Kia plan to sell only certified pre-owned cars, good products will be sold by large companies, while relatively bad ones will be sold by small firms, leaving the market polarized in the long run.
Despite facing such objections, the country's automakers are gearing up to enter the business. Hyundai Motor has applied for a license to sell cars in Yongin, Gyeonggi-do Province, and Kia has applied for one in the city of Cheongup, Jeollabuk-do Province. While Kia is waiting for approval, Hyundai recently was given the green light. South Korea's top automaker plans to buy back its second-hand vehicles owned for less than 5 years and driven less than 100,000 kilometers. It will also only sell certified pre-owned cars, meaning cars that have gone through thorough inspections. To minimize the impact of its entry, Hyundai plans to gradually expand its market share over the next couple of years. Starting with a 2.5% market share this year, the company will attain a 3.6% share in the following year, and by 2024, it says it will keep its market share at 5.1%. Meanwhile, other car makers such as Sangyong Motor, GM Korea, and Runo Samsung Motors are still considering their next move, but they are expected to follow suit. Min Suk-hyun, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now, BTS has taken home 2 iHeartRadio Music Awards. At the event held in Los Angeles on Tuesday, the K-pop band was announced as winners of Best Music Video for the hit single, Butter. This marks the 3rd straight year that the group rose on top of the Best Music Video category after Boy With Love in 2020 and Dynamite in 2021. Also for their global fandom, they won Best Fan Army for the 5th year in a row. In the acceptance speech, the members said that it means everything to have the Army supporting them.
Partly cloudy skies will remain tomorrow, but readings will be rising overall. Daytime temperatures will hover around the seasonal norms for most regions, and Seoul will see highs of 14 degrees Celsius. Southern parts of the country, such as Daegu, will see warmer daytime highs. This will create bigger contrast in temperatures, so make sure to dress in layers. Meanwhile, dust concentrations will stay high across western parts of the country. That includes the Seoul metropolitan area and Gangwon-do and Chungcheong-do provinces as well. Only for the morning hours, Daejeon and Gwangju will also see dust levels standing in the bad category. Morning lows will range from 1 to 6 degrees nationwide. Seoul will start up at 4 degrees Celsius. Daytime highs will be 2 to 7 degrees higher than today. Daejeon and Jeju will get up to 16 degrees. Gwangju and Busan will reach 17 degrees Celsius. Warm temperatures will continue for the time being. Nationwide showers are in the forecast on Friday evening. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.